Joel Neidig with SimbaChain, and I'm the CEO, and I'm excited to be here at Reimagine.
Hello and welcome to Reimagine 2021. This is our 8th conference in a monthly series of events, bringing you nothing but the best projects, bright minds, and leaders in the space. We've been fortunate enough to invite many talented individuals and teams to come speak with us, providing updates, insights, and all the above that's happening, in blockchain across the industry. I'll be your host today, Adam, from the MouseBelt team, where we focus on early stage investments through our accelerator, or providing development support to a number of growing projects as well as education within the MouseBelt University program. Our main objective and goals are pretty simple. It's increasing adoption, use cases, and real-world applications. We seek to educate our audience, on blockchain by helping them understand blockchain's real impact in the space. Again, thank you all for joining and tuning in to the Reimagine 2021 conference. We have an exciting interview today. A friend, a colleague, a partner of ours in the space. We're happy to have Joel Neidig back from SimbaChain. What's going on, Joel? How you doing today?
Hey, Adam, great to be here. We're just, it's been really exciting. Coming out of 2020, SimbaChain's really growing, and I'm exciting to see, a lot of the adoption happening, especially just across the whole entire blockchain space and crypto. There's a lot more use cases that are now happening in the blockchain space outside of crypto. So that's what we're really excited to see.
That's what I like to hear. And SimbaChain, they have a workshop. We host various university events with them. We have an event with Indiana University, which they're really close with. We're fortunate to have a guest speaker, leading their biz dev to come talk about, use cases, applications, things that they're building on. So we have a close relationship, and you're becoming a regular here on Reimagine, and very fortunate. So thanks for taking time out of your day to come talk with us. So let's get right into it. The theme of this conference is NFTs. That's kind of the topic. That's kind of been the boom recently. You guys are heavily involved. But before we get into that, I do want to touch on a few things, for our speakers, right? I've interviewed Joel here. So if you want to go back to the Reimagine YouTube channel, you can catch that, his background, his journey, what he thinks, how he got into crypto. And I kind of want to do a fresh perspective, this time around, right? There's a lot of content with SimbaChain, webinars, tutorials, demos, super easy. Obviously, this no code, low code kind of environment. So feel free to check that out. Just look up Joel or SimbaChain, and it'll all pop up. But to kind of tie that back into this conversation, kind of this first, 5-10 minutes of it, you guys kind of live by this acronym like DACS, right? Democratize through education, accelerate prototypes, connect with the broader ecosystem, scale for real world production. And when I think of Simba, knowing what you guys have built, like that kind of sums it all up. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to tap into that, right? And you can kind of take it however you like, but I think this really just, it's really what Simba's trying to attack and strategize for the last few years you guys have been around. Take us through kind of this motto, this slogan, this approach and strategy to blockchain in general, what you guys are doing. But take us through DACS.
Yeah, so basically we focus on education, enterprise, and government. And really those are kind of the three pillars that come together, because the public-private partnerships really, they're very collaborative these days, especially in research and things like that. So from education, we've been really partnering with a lot of universities. We have over 20 universities using our platform now, and continue to scale that. And we just hit over 5,000 users. So we just had 700 users sign up last month. So it's really starting to feel like that hockey stick. Like people are like getting into NFTs. They're getting into more things outside of what the crypto world is just about. It's about like the blockchain connectivity and how it's immutable, and you have like this persistence, like that something happened, and it doesn't require like a third party to have this kind of transaction happen. So that's what's been exciting. And so through the education part, we then kind of use that same model in the enterprise, where we educate like enterprises like, we know we need to implement blockchain, but how do we do it? And so we use that same kind of educational tool where we can drag and drop and build a smart contract for them right in front of them. And then they generate the code. It's Solidity. It goes right on the blockchain, and then we support 9 different protocols now, and continue to remain agnostic to different various blockchains. So depending on what.
And I want to get into that too in a few questions, but because that's kind of a critical point. And for those watching, like SimbaChain, and you can kind of piggyback here, Joel, like SimbaChain is not a blockchain. Can you kind of just break that down real quick at a high level that, it's not its own chain?
Sure. Yeah. SimbaChain is not a blockchain. I know it sounds a little SimbaChain, but what we originally started when me and Ian had a project with the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency years and years ago. And we realized it was really difficult to build blockchain applications for multiple different networks. We were doing analysis of different networks, and there's papers that we've written and all kinds of things we've done with the Navy and Department of Defense, the Army, the Air Force. So the Marines, we've got contracts with everybody now. So we're really implementing these asset tracking capabilities, and everybody uses some use different blockchains for different use cases. But what we realized, it was difficult to connect to those and write smart contracts and do all those different things. So we wanted to do exactly what you said. We wanted to democratize, make that more accessible to people, and that's what resonated really well with education, because believe it or not, a lot of our educational partners it's not in the computer science world. It's a lot in the law, the business world. We just had a culinary that are wanting to source fair trade kind of products, ingredients that just signed up. I mean, it's just like, there's so much more use cases. I mean, economies will run on blockchain. That's the future. $1 trillion economies are going to run on blockchain. And so we got to really open our eyes as a community and go, there's more than just, the coding side of things. It's really developing those use cases. And so we like to say, what's your solution? What's your need? And how do we develop a solution and break down the barriers from having to code and do those different things. And so, again, we remain agnostic, and that's how we're supporting so many different, blockchains and cryptos.
And that ties into like being able to innovate, right? Like freely. If you're not a coder, and people watching here probably assume they need to be a developer and engineer by trade.
Right.
And you'll hear through this whole discussion here that you shouldn't need to be a blockchain expert specialist to build applications, dApps, whatever the case is, to kind of integrate this technology into your stack, which can, rely on multiple technologies, but it definitely allows people to kind of freely innovate, lower barrier to adoption, right? And kind of have the capability or at least the resources with Simba to use this tech in how they foresee the product, the solution, the business model, whatever that is, which kind of ties into kind of the next, like accelerating prototypes, right? So how do you guys kind of add value there?
Yeah, so you can go, it only takes a couple minutes. You can go to build your first app on our website, and you can follow the screenshots. It has all the wallet integration. It has, drag and drop. It gives you the use case. It's a car demo to build out, and it's tracking an asset. And basically, you can generate an NFT on that non-fungible token for that asset and track it, everywhere, creating a unique identifier for that, a unique asset on the blockchain. But we do that very simplistically. We've got videos that walk people through there. Tom Cooksey, our master trainer. There's lots of videos out there. Ian's done videos. I've done videos. So if a CEO can build it, anybody can build it, right? So I think that's what's exciting about SimbaChain. And we've got what was really interesting at the Wyoming hackathon recently. They built a voting app, one of the hackathon groups, and they actually won first place using SimbaChain. So they were able to iterate so fast in a hackathon kind of setting. And I think that speaks well to your accelerated, what you were mentioning is like how fast they can build the application. And you can then, if you deploy to one blockchain, you can deploy to others if you want to switch, and use a different blockchain. So we support Ethereum, Binance, Hyperledger Fabric, Burrow, Sawtooth, Stellar. There's so
Avalanche.
many. Yeah, Avalanche. We support Avalanche, RSK, Consensus Quorum. Anyway, so many. It's all
Yeah.
on our website, but yeah, so many different blockchains. So
No, that's great. And I think like, being able to really, a lot of the problem in the past was accelerating prototypes and like being able to function and efficiently and effectively like apply something. There's been so many times, and obviously you probably heard it like so much, of enterprises being fatigued, the budget, like how does this affect, for the price of one prototype or MVP, it'd be great to do like 4 or 5 of them kind of with that out, right? And you kind of, it gets tiring. And I was talking to, one of the larger players, and it was just kind of amazing that they had, like the IBMs of the world, they had 800 pilots and POCs and like 5 for successful, right? So it's like, it wasn't a tech thing, it was just kind of, how do we streamline this, how do we use it and apply it, as opposed to, is a tech ready to rock and roll? And obviously it's there. And going back to kind of the acronym here, the DACS, right? DA, and going into C here, connecting with the broader ecosystem and scaling for real world adoption. And you kind of just tied into that in terms of, being able to plug and play here. And you brought up like working with all these protocols and platforms and blockchains themselves. Like, can you talk about some of those partnerships from, like, are they smart contract platforms already, and you guys streamline the front end? Do they don't have smart contracts, and you guys allow kind of this integration to streamline it? Because for example, Stellar, right? They have they allow smart contracts, but it's very sophisticated. It's complicated. I don't know if that's kind of, their thing, obviously, but they have it available. But I know you partnered with them. So how do you align? How do you choose what chains are they smart contract enabled and not, and kind of taking it from there?
So Stellar's unique because you don't actually deploy a smart contract to their network. You're doing a set of transactions. And so what SimbaChain does is we auto generate that code for you, so then you could reuse it over and over again. So it's kind of like doing what you would do for Ethereum, where you're deploying a smart contract and using that as the interface to the blockchain. What we do, and the code set is the same. So it's still it's a Swagger JSON, API that you have. So it's very familiar to people when they want to code against it, and you can, you don't have to be a coder to interface with it. The other thing, we really focus on EVM, so Ethereum virtual machines. But now with Boeing, one of our customers, we are actually going to be speaking native Fabric. So we're going to actually do Go. So you can auto-generate instead of just using Solidity, which we currently have done, you can auto-generate in Go. Wow. So now we're going to be supporting multiple smart contract languages along with multiple blockchains. So our system's getting even more sophisticated. And that's just by customer demand.
Yeah. And what does that look like? Like when, like, for example, Avalabs, Avalanche, like partnering up with them, like, they don't have smart contracts, or they did, like, what's the strategic alignment there?
Yeah, so Avalanche provides like their consensus mechanisms snowman, and it provides like a faster, and they just came out with the Apricot project, but it's decreasing the cost in the smart contract, gas fees. And that's what's exciting about Avalanche. And so, but they're EVM based. So their C chain, they have a C chain that has the smart contract capability, and that's what we interface to. So we can use Avalanche to, save customers some costs if they don't want to go to Ethereum, and you might cost you $200 to mint an NFT. We could do it on Avalanche for a lot less of the cost. And there's plenty, you can do that yourself just with Avalanche, and you don't even have to use our tool. But what we're doing is we're reaching out to the ecosystem outside of like the traditional coding groups and providing, tooling to get them up faster. Like if you're an iOS developer or you're an Android developer, we have SDKs, and it's the same SDK to use for Avalanche as it is for Ethereum, as it is for Binance Smart Chain. So you get to use, you can choose which network you want to go to, and you don't have to like scrap all your front end code and rewire everything. It's literally just an API endpoint. So that's the
Yeah.
exciting thing about what SimbaChain provides.
Yeah, which I think, I mean, it's amazing how I don't know, ahead of the curve, SimbaChain, because it's easy for the user, or like when you're plugging, building these smart contracts, but on the
Yeah.
back end, it's a lot of work. And not only that, you guys have been around, for quite some time in terms of
Yeah.
like, you said you did all, you guys came into these barriers and challenges, and like now it's coming to fruition because all these issues, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you had to be a blockchain developer, right? We have an engineering team as well, and that's the opportunity that we saw because we had blockchain developers. But it's like, we got to bring in more, Web 2.0 devs, and like being able to plug and play into other enterprises and government agencies without having to rehire, hire, upskill. What's kind of the easiest way to integrate, this type of technology solution into their existing stack, so that
Right.
they can, efficiently accelerate prototypes and, go to full production and whatnot, but use their internal, employees already that know what's up, but just need a little
Right.
boost. And you guys, it just seems like you guys are way ahead of the curve in terms of providing this solution.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we knew that. I mean, me and Ian said, hey, we're developing technologies that'll be used in the future. And that's where
Yeah.
we really started. And being that early and low code is like
Oh
really,
yeah.
yeah, it's so early. But we knew it's very important, especially for the next generation. And so we've got 6 interns now. I think we're hiring 2 more. So we'll have a total of like 8 interns for the summer. That will be, some are coders, some are more on the business development side, but all learning about how non-fungible tokens and these different projects and these different kind of the business value behind this Web 3.0 ecosystem that's being built out. I mean, this is like the internet of the 1990s. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how big is that? Can that become? And it's like it's trillions of dollars. So we're very in the early stages, but we need to democratize and train the next generation with better, like
Yeah.
with easy to use tools, because they don't need to be that kind of coder. They have great ideas and great solutions, and we can build robust backends to handle all the nonce collisions and all these other things that SimbaChain does so well that you don't get, just straight out of the box. So I kind of like, we're very much like a Red Hat model, I think, where there's open source technology, but like we're supporting some very, with some really robust tooling. And that's kind of the model that we've really looked to. And it's definitely got a cloud-based kind of flair to it, because none of our stuff you necessarily have to download. You can download the SDKs, but if you want to deploy everything, it's all browser based. So you can do everything in the browser and get some pretty good satisfaction of seeing your smart contract deploy. You can see it on Etherscan. You can track your transactions, and it's really impactful when the student sees that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, no, I think we provided one of those interns on the BD side. So, very fortunate there to be able to kind of, help each other, right? And kind of
Absolutely.
source talent and then give them opportunities,
Yeah.
and I believe he's not a coder at all, but he
Yeah.
understands. And I think Simba was just kind of a perfect fit.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think and what we want to do is incubate that relationship, and we're
yeah,
gonna like, what we want to do is hire all these interns eventually, like, to be full-time employees. So like that's the goal, is like to continue to grow our company and bring in all this next generation that's going to be building the next supply chain, or the next this next Web 3.0 kind of economy.
yeah, and to talk about like the early '90s, talking about kind of just like React Native too in general, right? Like, back then, like, the iOS and like Android code, and like being able to kind of streamline that, right? To kind of build apps in both areas with kind of, the same or similar code as much as possible. You guys are kind of like, so where do you see, so it's kind of interesting, like this smart contract as a service, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty valuable, or like, you think there's going to be more coming out? I mean, you guys are kind of leaders in the space.
Yeah.
It's such a great
Well,
idea.
Yeah, so now we've generated it so that you can do it in Kubernetes and Docker. So you can
Wow.
take it on-prem, you can take it to Google Cloud, you can take it to IBM, you can take it to Amazon, you can take it to Microsoft. A lot of ours run on Microsoft and AWS, as most people do, but you can take it anywhere now that it's Kubernetes based. And the team, we have graph database capabilities now. So like our enterprise platform is so sophisticated. We've taken like 160 million different parts and records from the DoD and have done like some pretty amazing things, analyzing different data sets. So, it's very robust, but it provides that data integrity that, you normally don't get outside of a blockchain or a distributed ledger technology.
Yeah, no, you guys have been doing amazing things for quite some time on actually providing utility of the tech. Pretty hands on. You guys have been grinding it out with government, which you know. What are their thoughts around kind of blockchain? I mean, I'm assuming they're using it for cryptography, like distributed systems, security and ops, and kind of just the way that the world's operating now, being
Sure.
technology advanced. I'm assuming kind of blockchain plays a vital critical component, along with, I'm assuming, yeah, their logistics strategy, their IoT devices, their
Yeah.
various communication channels, right? Is that kind of where this all touches?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's comms. They call it C5. So it's like command control, communications. There's a lot of acronyms behind that, but
Yeah.
everything based to asset tracking to we got 5G stuff going in, because there's with slicing of 5G networks, you have to set up secure communications. It's basically like a direct VPN when you're doing 5G slicing. Um, we've got some Media Verify, so that's one of our products that we've launched with multiple agencies and and some other allied countries that are using it. And so we're protecting kind of like your digital assets, and we can cryptographically hash that and make sure that it hasn't been changed or manipulated. So it's a lot of very much focused on misinformation and disinformation. And that they're actually using Ethereum for that. So we're actually hashing things on Ethereum so people can check back on a public ledger to make sure that something hadn't been changed or modified that's in an off-chain storage. So it's very much like what the NFTs are doing when they're cryptographically hashing tokenizing something, and then they have like a URL that they're that it's point
Yeah.
to. Except ours has a lot more data integrity because our URL is not going to disappear. Some in a couple of years, some of those non-fungible tokens, people will be like, that URL is gone. It's not there anymore. It's like, well, at least you have your transaction on Ethereum. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's kind of, yeah, I think the next generation is going to have like a lot of more persistence, and this on-chain and off-chain uh, is going to kind of come together. And that's what we've been building from kind of the get-go is providing that off-chain hashing capability to multiple different data stores. And
Could you
there's a
elaborate
lot
on
of
that? Could you elaborate on that, actually, like on chain and
yeah,
off chain, with regards to
yeah,
Simba? With regards to Simba, yeah,
yeah. So like you have like companies like Filecoin that are using
yeah,
IPFS, and this it's a data storage. It's like your
yeah,
file system on your hard drive. You're just storing something. But what you have to do is you need to be able to provide kind of like that data integrity that the item hadn't been modified or changed. And so that's what we're providing, providing connectivity back to an on-chain, and it's kind of it's a little bit like Chainlink and their oracles, like they're saying this is like good data coming in, but where we're providing is, we know that we're hashing that and then putting that fingerprints on the on chain. So if any of the manifest, we can bundle terabytes and terabytes of data together, and then just take that that 32 character hash and put it on the blockchain for verification. And the cool thing about the SHA 256 is like if it's modified, it looks completely different, even if like one character has been modified inside that off-chain
yeah,
data. Um, and that's what makes it like really to just do things like a lot faster and not have expensive transactions. You don't store everything on chain. You store some things off chain, Like a lot of the NFTs, the images or the videos from the NBA Top Shot, that's, the stuff's being stored off chain, which is just in the internet. But you're taking a cryptographic hash, that the token that's actually on chain, the smart contract, that has the validation. It's basically like a digital receipt that thing exists and where it exists.
And so where do you guys store?
Yeah, so we use all kinds of different things. We use Azure Blob Storage. We'll use Tahoe Laughs, Ceph, which is a Red Hat, now IBM product, and then IPFS. And then people can build their own IPF clusters, and they can do a lot of different things. So we'll probably be eventually supporting Filecoin. We're looking at Arweave. Arweave's Ethereum Swarm is another one that's providing data storage of integrity. So we stay agnostic, just like blockchain. We stay agnostic on file storage too. We do S3 containers. So if you want to do an S3 container in Amazon, we do that too. So yeah, there's just so many different use cases, and this is all driven by customers. Like everything we do, the customer comes and like, oh, I want to do this. We're like, okay, we'll add that feature. And so everything we always add is we're very close to our customers. We listen, we ask constantly. We're always iterating on the platform what needs to be modified, and that's what I think is. And we hire people outside the industry that are more technical in their space. Like it might be a supply chain person, or they might be just a government person, or they come from the media industry or something like that. And that's who we partner with them to, and then we use obviously the technology that we've built, because me and Ian are just techies, to kind of implement those use cases.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the best bet. Like when we have people asking us, about, like you said, different verticals and different kind of, industries and all that, like we're not experts, they know more than they know more than us, when we're talking to our enterprise clients, like, we're not here to tell you like how to run a supply chain, but our goal really is to, understand that, which we have an idea and we know what's going on, but we hear from you and then we integrate from a technical standpoint. How do we implement it? How do we build it? Like what makes sense? So that, it makes sense for you to kind of bring in, your partners in. So I guess, like on gas fees and costs of running these transactions, what does that look like in terms of like the Simba layer and like the blockchain layer, and you guys are doing all the work, what does that look like?
Yeah, so we, on the back end, we have like a gas calculator, so we can kind of like attain what it's going to cost to, do that. We always, all of the people, like most of our projects, we always do a test net first, and then we, deploy to one of the test nets, make sure things work properly before we go mainnet. And then, a lot of that, some of the stuff we're looking at integrating with MetaMask. Right now, we just have our own wallet and it's an HD wallet that we use that's in browser. We don't store any of the keys, we don't handle any of that. So it's, it's really up to the user to manage all that. But yeah, like Avalanche is preloading the gas fees now, for what it would take to do a transaction in your MetaMask wallet. So that's kind of really cool. So I think there's a lot of ways to calculate, the gas fees, but it is expensive right now on Ethereum. I think when Ethereum 2.0 comes out, it's going to be, that'll drop the cost and things will be a lot better. But for right now, it's expensive. So. Oh, sorry.
So sorry, I was on mute. So what you're saying is you can kind of forecast on the preload as a developer and kind of see where the costs are going to go.
Yeah. And see where your costs are going to be. Yep. And so, but yeah, obviously on Binance and Avalanche, it's significantly cheaper. Right now. But it's just what your use case is. Sometimes if you're doing something, you want it to be on Ethereum, the cost might not matter.
And to even go off of that, like before we get into NFTs, to kind of conclude on like the Simba side, like, now that you have, and we can kind of keep it with your 9 partners, like, how do you see the blockchain side, right? Like you're agnostic. So the use case is going to dictate kind of who, what blockchain you're going to use.
Right.
you know, what are some trends that you're seeing in you know, at a high level too, like,
Sure.
you know, you guys obviously provide this layer, you know, the smart contract, you know, layer. What about like even deeper than that, like when you work with the governments or whatever,
Yeah.
you know, entities, like, you know, I'm assuming they say, oh, you're not, or not assuming, but you know, you're not a blockchain, so like which one do we use? What have you
Right.
kind of noticed about the chains and partners that you work with? I'm sure they have niche, you know, niches and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, so we came out with a document. It was built by Tom Cooksey, our master trainer and architect, and also John Stevens, who is one of our consultants, used to work for Accenture and now is working for Amazon. But we built this document to help people understand, like, hey, here's the different blockchains that SimbaChain supports, and here's the why you'd use the different ones. And so it talks about the consensus algorithms, you know, what the block, if it's proof of work, you know, proof of stake, proof of authority, proof of staked authority, which is Binance, and a lot of Stellar has their own consensus algorithm. So like we've identified like what like a payment might do, if you're like doing payments. We have a Simba Pay open source application that people can download, and it's in GitHub, and it's got a walkthrough guide to build your own payment app in Stellar. So we open source that. People can do that. And we build a lot of these open source like front end applications that work on with different chains. And so we kind of guide users to like, and you can anything EVM based, you can swap it out. So you can take, like, if it's Ethereum, you could always swap it out with Binance, or if it's,
Yeah.
you know, if it's Binance Smart Chain, you could swap it out with Avalanche. So they can take that same application and just repoint it to a different blockchain and you reuse it again. So they don't have to change any of their code. It's really simplistic. But yeah, and then the government side is kind of a mixed bag. I mean, we have clients that are using Hyperledger Fabric, a lot of them using consensus quorum, and so it's really just different
Yeah.
ones. Some are using mainnet Ethereum,
Yeah.
like I said, on the media verify side of things, because they want the public, it's usually public releases, and they want to show the public that it hasn't been changed or modified, and that's where a public mainnet Ethereum comes in really handy.
So are you pretty bullish on like a lot of these chains, and there's going to be obviously, you know, 5 to 10 chains that, or whatever the number is, arbitrary, but there's going to be multiple chains that provide different utility?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
and I think Polkadot and Cosmos are going to be big because there'll be a lot of interchange. I mean, you've already seen like what Uniswap can do from a, you know, just providing that kind of layer of you know, different exchanges and different things like that. But I think you're going to have the same thing, because all these different, like, we have multiple instances where we have one client on Hyperledger Fabric and another one on Consensus Quorum, and we've actually connected the two. So
Wow.
we're actually doing cross chaining. It's at
Yeah.
SimbaChain, which is kind of unique, from the blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, and cross chaining those together.
Via
So
smart contract.
yeah, via smart
Yeah.
contract, and it's very yeah, it's anyway, we've got like 80-page documents on how to make sure the nonces don't collide and things like that. But yeah.
No, that's interesting. And yeah, I mean, so what inning do you think we're at? Like you said,
Oh man,
you know,
I still think.
there's polka dots, there's Cosmos, you know, Ethereum is still, you know, working itself out. Do you think Ethereum has a solution? Not in regards of like a
Yeah.
time frame, but like you think,
Yeah.
you know, they're capable of, you know, meeting some of these like limitations, exceeding these
Yeah.
limitations, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, I've read stuff back in the early days of the internet where they're like, oh my goodness, once we connect so many servers, it'll just bring down the entire internet, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And like today, you know, that's just hilarious, you know, like we're like, the internet's plenty robust, you know, I mean, sometimes there's DDoS and stuff goes down, like Auth0. We were using Auth0 as our identity provider. It just went down this week, and we're like, oh my goodness, everything's crashing. And all of our users were like, hey, we can't log in. And it's like, I know everybody's using Auth0 for their identity, and now they're bought by Okta. But so
yeah,
there's
yeah,
like all these different microservices and web services that we all use and depend on. And I think
yeah.
you're gonna really see more of a peer-to-peer, decentralized like capability where stuff starts, you know, and the economy will be more robust for it. And
Yeah.
that's why I said there's like at the beginning of our talk, I think $1 trillion economies are going to run on blockchain.
Wow.
It is coming. It's going to happen. Money is trillions of dollars of money already transacted on it. And that's that's the first, data obviously is just starting.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think we're still in the first inning. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll be that bullish. I mean, I think we're so early right now on the use cases.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. Being in this bubble, you get some insights, but we are moving pretty quick, and then you kind of just have to zoom out to just be like, wow, like it's coming, right? You kind of see the players coming in, teams like yourself that are working on these on streamlining the technologies one way or another to kind of help the end user to for everything not to be so siloed, and then you just summed it up too on the peer-to-peer, like that and that's going to lead into not only peer-to-peer, but I think like devices just transacting with each other probably via token, like
it'll add a lot more security when you're having like thousands of IoT devices, and how the government, if you read about the government stuff, it's zero trust. Like, so we've got a lot of zero trust white papers that we've written about how do you connect, how do you be in a trustless state, and the government's very scared about that. Obviously, I mean, there's just so many things that can go wrong, and so we need to have this kind of zero trust layer, even like the 5G, as 5G is coming out and connecting to all these different thousands and thousands of devices. It can really, there's security you can put in place, and it works, and blockchain's the tech to do it. So I'm excited, and we've worked with partners to, like, even though SimbaChain's very much a low code and kind of this API UI driven company to providing visualization and relationship data, back to the user. We've really partnered with like Truffle to integrate with their suite of, Microsoft with VS Code to provide plugins so that people can auto generate the code or build, free code in their environment in their favorite IDE, and then bring it back to SimbaChain to generate the APIs for the different blockchains. So
no, I mean, everything's coming together. Everybody's trying. What do you think about Hyperledger? Like, I mean, there's competition, so you would think like some of these larger players, maybe have an edge and whatnot. But in blockchain, I feel like it's a little bit different in terms of open source, public, the innovation side. But how is Hyperledger? And we, a couple seconds on it, but Hyperledger is like maintained, actually, like, a lot of the public side is tapping into Hyperledger and compatible and composable. So, and I'm sure you probably work close with them. Like, how do you think that? How do you think that technology is kind of played out, and why is it maybe successful? And I know you don't work with them, but it's just I'm curious.
Well, we're in disclosure, we're part of the Linux Foundation and Hyperledger Foundation. So we've really enjoyed the relationship we've had with them. We've open sourced, we've helped build some of the stuff, like some of the Python integration for the EVM, the Hyperledger EVM integration. We've updated that for them. So we've done a lot of things to work, contribute back to the community. And I think that's what's exciting. And we've got partners like Boeing that are heavily using it, and will continue to use it. And I think that's going to continue on. There's a lot of Hyperledger projects. We get contacted by some of them for like wanting to integrate. We've currently support 3 different projects in Hyperledger. So we support Fabric, Burrow, which is a EVM based, and we also support Sawtooth. So those are kind of the 3 that we were looking at. Indy for doing self-sovereign identity, but we just haven't gotten that. It's like so many developer time to get everything connected. So that's kind of. But right now the team's really deep into the Hyperledger Fabric native coding right now. So then we can speak directly to Go. Or speak Go in the smart contract language, and then the SimbaChain API will still be agnostic, so they'll still have the nice Swagger JSON thing that people are always. And we really approach things with an asset and transaction model, so it's very much like here's my asset, here's my transaction. I have lots of assets talking to transactions, many one-to-many relationships. But that makes really simplistic for a user to track and understand. And then we reverse that back too, so you can like graphically query that in a graph database using Neo4j. So, but yeah, but Hyperledger is I think it's around to stay for a while, and will be continue to be, deployed out and actually integrate. If you look at Hyperledger Bisu with what Consensus is doing, I think they're going to eventually merge those two stacks together, Consensus Quorum and Hyperledger Bisu, so you can have a Solidity based one or a Go based kind of capability.
Options.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, and they've been around a long time, and they were out early, actually. Even before some of these public chains, and it's just kind of cool to see. But I've also seen a lot of people come from Hyperledger to the public side, and then a lot of the enterprises are now integrating or have been using Hyperledger in some capacity and kind of tapping into the public side for whatever reason. So that's cool. No, great. So I mean, I think the theme of this conference this time around is NFTs, right? With this kind of boom and stuff. And I was reading a little bit that you guys are kind of getting involved in that and providing solutions. Share some of that. We got about like 12 minutes left or so. Yeah, kind of share. First of all, share your thoughts on NFTs. Like, is it a bubble? Like, does it make sense? For myself personally, it's super interesting because the owner still has a copyright. You still have the ownership, but then you have this NFT that's available. It's one, it's unique, right? It's only one of a kind. And then you have artists fractioning off this. We have real estate. What's kind of your perspective on NFTs at the moment?
I think everything can be NFT'd. Non-fungible token, it was always, I think it was always Ethereum's Vitalik and everybody else's idea to have these kind of capabilities. ERC20s weren't always going to be the only thing. We wanted to have a lot more capabilities, and so we do support ERC 721s and ERC 1155s. And you can actually do that right now with our Truffle Suite integration. You can free code that and deploy, and it gives you the endpoints and Swagger JSON to communicate with all that and interact with that. Wow. And it adds a little bit more security around it too, because now you have an API and some other things to provide for another front end application that you can have do different things. But the other thing that we've come out with is now our EDU platform has a minting service on it. So you can actually mint NFTs, and we have like several templates that we'll be launching. So people, and this was demand by, our students and different faculty that have been using our platform, and beyond the smart contract generator where you can drag and drop and build things, they wanted to be able to just do like different NFT and mint those right in the platform. So we're providing that capability. The other cool thing about the platform is that there's a lot more in the UI. The teacher can communicate and comment, and the student can comment back. So it's like this, there's a very integrated chat capability that's built into that. So we're really getting more about collaborating. I mean, even in our app.simbachain.com right now, you can invite people to your organization. It's very much like, what you'd have with like Slack or anything else like that. You can invite people to your organization and join and communicate and different things like that. But this is even a more enhanced environment, a UI, to provide that minting service and collaboration and video and kind of this whole entire dialogue that you can track with your project. So a lot to be had and built with a lot of these institutions that are deploying out like new things and new ideas. And that's where we're getting into like intellectual property and all kinds of things. I think, like you mentioned, like with the NFT, is it just a fad? And I think, it's exciting right now with like NBA Top Shot and the MLB and OpenSea, and so many different fascinating projects are happening. And I'm so excited to see that. But I think there's more beyond that. I think there's like, title companies and real estate and, and music's coming, and
Yeah.
they're getting into that and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nike's gotten involved. Jack Dorsey's like Twitter comment. Kings of Leon just dropped an album. Disclosure, the group, launched their own NFT for one of their artworks of I guess their kind of main staple design, like the face. So like, what kind of benefit? What's the benefit of like the NFT?
Yeah, I think
Like,
it
what's
gives
the
you.
value?
Yeah,
What's the value, the benefit if you're going to create one? And we can talk high level, like you said.
yeah,
There's artists, right? There's artists involved. There's musicians. There's athletes. There's
yeah.
we talked about it at the beginning. Like, what's great about an NFT too is kind of that perpetual like revenue stream, like,
Right. That's
right, like,
exactly. Yeah,
and we talked about it earlier before we jumped on, of like school books, right? Like, there's some application there where, you can kind of tweak some things. And as you continue to sell it on, maybe it's not that expensive, but everybody kind of gets a cut. Like, what do you see the benefit and the value with the NFT market?
yeah. I think it's all those things you just mentioned. I think you can have this residual royalty that can go out. I mean, you think about music today. I mean, it's so complicated, and how long does it take for that original artist to get their money,
Well,
down the chain?
I was just
And it's like,
reading. I was just reading, like, yeah, they're making more money off, not on their music. Like, the music
right,
is just kind of a way down to the bottom. Who's going to
right,
be, fastest to the bottom, and like, which, yeah, we got to flip that around. So, and then going back
yeah.
to the peer-to-peer that we talked about the mid part of the discussion, like bringing that back. And I think maybe NFT kind of adds value there to kind of do this peer-to-peer thing and engage community and kind of followers and whatnot.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you're building new economies and new solutions that people can monetize. And it might even be more like, advantageous to the user because they're getting more engagement with the artist, as opposed to you have like all these third parties that are like stuck in between the user and the artist. And so there's a lot of power, I think, behind that, and probably from like a pirating standpoint and some protection that can really assist. And yeah, so I think it's definitely everybody implementing those use cases and the technology and adding those kind of capabilities is exciting, and seeing what's going to work and what doesn't.
What do you think are some of the barriers to like adopting this, right? Like, from my perspective, right, people want to hold or tangible items. Like,
Yeah,
is it more psychological? I mean, obviously it's going to be generational,
yeah,
native to internet, if you're born with the
right.
phone and all these devices and stuff. Like, I think for yeah, again, is it your mind? Is it kind of,
Well,
where does value derive from, right? It's like the
yeah,
community, the people, like, what do you think
yeah.
about it?
Well, I think digitally, it'll like that's really easy right now because the NFTs, you can mint a digital piece of an item, whether it be music or
Yeah.
a graphic or something like that. Um, but I think what's going to be really exciting is physical non-fungible tokens. So physical non-fungible tokens will be like when we can cryptographically embed the hash into the item, and we're actually doing that right now with 3D printing.
Oh,
So
wow.
I think there's going to be a whole like boom in that world. I think Nike will do it with their shoes. I mean, you could do it with the carbon printers that they're like Adidas is already doing with their printing. They use the carbon
Yeah. Yeah.
3D printers to print their soles, and you could embed a cryptographic hash that would be one of a unique. And that's how you could do like, but because there's a lot of counterfeit in the shoe world, there's a lot of counterfeit in the wine, there's lots of counterfeit in
Olive oil.
olive oil.
Yeah.
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 So there's like lots of those use cases, and I think as we can get really sophisticated and in IoT, and then also in the actual physical products, the biggest thing like with the wine and with the olive oil is that people like that don't have the receipts, which that's basically what a non-fungible token is. It's a digital receipt to show the pathway. It's the provenance of where this item all came from and who bought it and when did they buy it, and providing that on an immutable. And that's why I said I go back to the economies. The data will be transacted along with the money. So money becomes data, data becomes money. And that's where we're at now. We're in this next generation where money's becoming data and data is becoming money.
And to talk about this physical non-fungible token, what would be different in terms of a QR code, or are you talking about kind of
no,
embedded?
it's more sophisticated than
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
It's getting embedded with chain code. So you know, and this is kind of very it's kind of very science fiction, but science fiction
yeah,
usually plays out, right? I mean, we're going to
totally.
Mars now. So
Yeah, yeah.
so so like back in the second season of The Mandalorian, right, on Disney Plus or whatever,
Do you
there was
suggest? Do you suggest watching that?
oh, it's a great. I mean, I like anything Star Wars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
So,
gotta watch that. I
but
was asking somebody about that, and I keep
yeah,
seeing it in my email, like trending, and
yeah,
I gotta get up to speed there.
Mandalorian's really cool. But Boba Fett, comes back, and I don't know, spoiler alert. But anyway, he's showing the provenance of that. It's his armor. He's like,
Yeah,
this is my armor, and the chain code's embedded inside of it.
yeah,
And that is, I mean, that the counterfeiting in aerospace alone is like insane. And so if we're able to cryptographically embed like chain code into like really high end expensive items, then it's going to be amazing. And so you have to use like special equipment like X-ray and neutron interferometry to scan it, but that's going to come down in price too. Um, so yeah, we're doing a lot of that just in the research side.
yeah. I think Honeywell like had their own marketplace for. I didn't realize, on the aerospace kind of the parts involved, the logistics,
Yeah.
the supply chain kind of operations, and all of the stakeholders that's involved in Honeywell. I don't know if you're familiar, you might be, but like,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, yeah. Lisa Butters was in charge of that. Yeah. So
yeah, we
yeah.
had her on. I invited her on. I actually interviewed her. But yeah, that was kind of cool. And just talking about, things like that, which I guess what you're saying on the physical non-fungible token, one step beyond that is embedding it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
You have this market,
yeah.
you have the platform marketplace to kind of exchange these items. The next
Right.
step would be like, you don't even need that marketplace because it's just going to be embedded. And,
And there's your peer to peer
you can
because
scan it for yourself. Yeah.
it is now the smart contract.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now when you would scan it, that smart contract is embedded and you have the provenance of that item. So you can be almost completely peer to peer. We can store 2 kilobytes of data into that item.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty, so that, 2 kilobytes, you can do a lot with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, man, this is kind of, yeah, like we said, even for, people watching, right? Like the different backgrounds, like it's really not heavily engineering. It's kind of like product. It's kind of like, obviously it touches many disciplines of,
yeah.
Backgrounds, marketing, psychology, economics, philosophy,
Yeah.
obviously business and stuff, and computer science. But yeah, so I feel like Louis Vuitton was trying to obviously, prevent fake like items and stuff. So like, and you may or may not know, like, is the high end industry like
Oh
tapping in
yeah.
it, right? They've already been using. And what are
Yeah.
they doing? Are you using the QR code or like?
Yeah, I think they're doing the combination of like QR codes. The other thing is like you can do some some people hit me up about when I started talking about physical non-fungible tokens. They're like, well, you could what's it preventing the code inside somebody like reverse engineering that and then like printing the same thing. I'm like, yeah, but how would you, when it's timestamped on the blockchain, how do you carbon date that back?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it has a date. The
Yeah,
metal,
yeah.
and you could put DNA into that botanical DNA. I mean, you can get for a very
Yeah.
high end item. You can get, it's not
Yeah.
expensive to do some not anti counterfeiting, and that's what the blockchain provides, that time stamped data, that capability. So I think they're doing a combination of like QR codes and then provenance of the item, and then probably some features that only they know are on there. So it's but yeah, it's crazy.
It's amazing. I mean, it's even touching real estate, right? Like this
Yeah.
fractional ownership. I feel like that makes sense. I don't know if I want to own like, 2x2 of of some
Yeah, well,
building,
and if you think
but like,
about it, like our parents did, like with timeshares, right? I don't have a timeshare,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
back
yeah,
in the day, like
yeah.
timeshares were like a big deal, and now there people are like, oh, I don't want to do a timeshare. But
Everybody's trying to get out of them.
yeah, everybody's trying to get out of timeshares, but this could be a potential as long as if there's residual revenue coming back from the from that kind of an
Yeah,
NFT
this,
capability.
yeah.
So, but there's a model there. I'm not necessarily the one to build it all
No, no, yeah,
out,
yeah,
but
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, do you think like do you think there's demand on that side? There's obviously supply in terms of like fractionalizing or NFTing, so do you think is NFT tokenizing an asset the same?
Yeah, I think it. I mean, essentially, if you think of the NFT as the digital receipt, the provenance
Yeah.
of that physical item. So whether it be digital or physical, but I think getting more to that where if you have a VIN code of a car, it's a unique identifier. Can you tie it back to a digital receipt of a blockchain transaction? And
Yeah.
that's where we got to get to, and then it shows the history of that item. And it's
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
thing with wine. It's the same with olive oil. And if you can show provenance, it's worth more than if you can't. And that's the
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's crazy,
So,
man.
yeah.
There's so much here we could probably go on for days.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
No, and
And
this
we
has
got to
been
get together again, man. I mean, it's been a while.
too long.
Yeah.
Things will get back to normal here.
Yeah. I'll have to get back out to California.
Are you going to go to the Bitcoin conference in Miami?
I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
gonna make it down there, but we're having a big team meeting here in June up at Notre Dame. So
Nice.
everybody from Simba Chains all flying in.
Awesome.
But yeah, but yeah, I'm looking to get to more conferences. We want to go to there's a big blockchain expo that's supposed to happen in London in September.
Nice.
And we're sponsors of Consensus.
Yeah.
But that's virtual this year. But hopefully, things start opening back up again.
Yeah, it seems like I'm going to get my first vaccine shot tomorrow,
Nice.
and then 2 weeks after. So
Yeah.
we'll hopefully it works out.
Yeah.
But no,
Cool.
man. I mean, Joel, yeah, we've coming up on an hour here, man. I appreciate your time as always. Second time interviewing you. You guys have been big supporters of MouseBelt, of Reimagine. This discussion here, we talked on kind of the priorities of what how Simba delivers, from the intro of this call, making SimbaChain like seamless, but scalable.
Yep.
From an execution standpoint across chains, across industries, across companies. So like very fortunate for you to kind of dive into that. We chatted about your NFT thoughts here, and you're obviously pretty bullish on that as well. Long term, it looks like there's definitely use cases and applications that everybody's tackling now, and this physical non-fungible token is pretty legit. I got to think about that some more. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I think there's probably some people that have like patents out that are kind of, but I mean, that'll be interesting to see where that all goes. But yeah, it's exciting to see where it's going to happen.
I'll make sure to edit this last part out. The idea.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Yeah.
The idea. We'll keep the idea. No, no. It's been great, man. But
yeah.
Where can people, I guess, learn more about Simba? Where should they go and kind of catch up on all of this stuff?
Sure. Yeah. SimbaChain.com. It's a Simba and then chain.com. And it's there are tons of tutorials, tons of ebooks, and you can dive into our blog. We got tons of stuff. There's lots of we got blogs stuff about what we've done with MouseBelt. So big supporter there, and MouseBelt University.
Yeah.
Literally that, like what we're doing is like building that next generation. So this next generation is going to be able to build so much more than we can imagine, and so training them up and showing them how to do it is going to be exciting.
Yeah, and I think that even ties into what people are watching here, trying to understand, trying to learn. Like, you can apply this technology to existing
Right.
Applications and way of life, but ultimately with the innovation, it's coming. Like this is the foundation. We haven't even tapped into it because some of this technology just doesn't make sense. You can't plug it into some of this old legacy systems for whatever reason, right? It's kind of like the new business models, new ways of thinking about things. from, even sustainability to energy to one of our main kind of topics here that you and I are going back and forth is like peer to peer. Like,
Right.
nothing's peer to peer right now. I mean, we have Venmos and your PayPal's, but like everything else, people are still getting mail checks. It's like,
Right. Exactly.
it's crazy. So,
Yeah.
learned a lot here today with you.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're gonna look to have you guys back. This is Joel Neidig from CEO of SimbaChain. Very fortunate, and thanks, Joel, for coming to chat with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Adam.
All right, we'll talk to you again. See you soon.